Hi, this is Stacy with Book This Project, and thank you for attending my free training, The 4 Things You Need to Know to Make a Faster Photo Book. So before we get started, I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted to make a photo book? Now, the chances are, since you're here at this training, are pretty likely that you have wanted to make a photo book before. But I'm going to ask, why haven't you made a photo book yet? What has been the big roadblock or stumbling block that you've had, that you've experienced that has kept you from actually finishing your photo book? So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, or just make a mental note of what has been your biggest struggle to finishing a photo book. So I want to ask if this sounds anything like you. It seems easy enough to make a photo book. You just collect, your photos, your favorite photos, and then assemble them in one of those free software programs. It seems straightforward enough to make a photo book, easy peasy, right? Yet as you start to get into it and you wonder if you should include this photo or that photo, or which pose is the best, or should you include them all, or you've got to cover everything, you start to get lost into what photos you've already edited, what photos you may have exported. Perhaps you get some exported, start to work in the program, and it gets a little clunky. You have a hard time figuring out the layouts, and just one thing or another, you get so totally overwhelmed by the process. And so you stop, or you just get lost at where you left off and give up because it just takes too long to figure out where you left off with the process. So I've heard from so many that is what prevents them from making a photo book is just the sheer overwhelming process of it all, from the photos to the software, and actually finding the time to get it done within their busy life. But I want you to be able to print your photos in less time and without the stress, because having a photo book of your family photos, of the memories that you shared over the year, it's really important that you have that as a physical record, and that it's not trapped in some hard drive that becomes dusty, or you can't even remember what hard drive has what photos on it. Believe me, I am there at this present moment where I have different years' photos on different hard drives, and it just becomes impossible to have that desire to look back through your photo books, or to look back through your photos. And so that's why I love having photo books, is because it's so easy to just grab off the coffee table or the bookshelf when you want to reminisce, go down memory lane, right? So does it sound impossible to make a photo book in less time and without the stress? Well, with this training, I'm going to arm you with the 4 strategies that you will need to finally start and actually finish a beautiful photo book for your family. That at the end of this process and this training, it hopefully motivates you to finally get that to finally get that book on your coffee table or in your bookshelf. So here's what you're going to learn today. The 4 things you need to make a faster photo book. It starts with a clear focus. So finding ways to streamline or narrow what type of photo book you want to make. The next step is to specify your action plan. So if you've been creating a to-do list of what you've got to get done over the weekend, or with your holiday shopping and planning, preparing, don't just write photo book on there and think that you can cover it. Step 3 is to learn how to select photos without regret. And this is just a big mindset hurdle that you really need to get over if you want to make a photo book in less time. And then the final step or strategy is understanding how to streamline the software program so that it works for you, and you don't try to treat it as some cumbersome task that you make way too difficult. So before we dig in, I want to just briefly share my story so that you know how I got here and put all of this information together. So 10 years ago, my son was born, and I became obsessed with documenting her every day. I took every photography workshop that I could at the beginning. I took thousands and thousands of photos a year. I think I was averaging around 15 to 20,000 photos a year when I was initially learning photography. This photo is actually my daughter, and it's one of those photos I wish I could have of both kids, but didn't start the photography journey until my oldest was born. And so once when I started taking the photography workshops, immediately I had the desire to print my photos. So I've been working on this for 10 years of making photo books year after year in one form or another. So after 2 of those annual photo books, I quickly became overwhelmed with the process. So the first thing was I really wanted to include everything. I wanted my annual photo books to really be comprehensive and just really capture everything from drawings that they had, photographing every event. And again, 15 to 18,000 photos is a lot to kind of cull down into one book. And so it became very overwhelming in itself. I would easily get lost in the process, going back to, what photos I've tagged, what photos I've edited, what may I have exported, what I still had in my head to get to. I didn't have a clear way to track my progress. And because I was including everything, it was a big process. It wasn't something that I could just tackle in a couple of hours or 2 weeks, something like that. It was a very overwhelming process I had set up for myself. And then for 3, I just had, it was incredibly hard to select photos. And it was wanting to, my desire to get every single expression or anything that tugged at the heartstrings, which was most of the photos that I had rated, that I loved. I wanted to include them, but then that started to add to the overwhelming process because there were just way too many photos, and it wasn't clear cut as to what I should include. And and the selecting of the photos and trying to get everything in was very stressful. And I hear from a lot of people that they get frustrated with the software programs. For me, it was really that I was just spending way too much time using them. I actually love using the software programs and getting pretty detailed. But for a photo book of kind of my favorite photos that I want to get done at the end of the year, every single year, I could not spend this much time using the software. I had to find a way to step back and let the software programs, the kind of genius of their layouts themselves, just strictly deal with that and not get too overwhelmed and trying to make it do too much, if that makes sense. So after several photo books that I made that took just way too much time, and frankly started to stress me out, I started to put together a faster, easier process for making a photo book. And when this happened, I was able to make a photo book documenting our entire year in less than 12 hours. And yes, this is during one of the busiest times of the year. Now, of course, I do have some experience. And so the time frame it takes for me to make a photo book, it gets less and less each year because I become more familiar with the actual process. But I have seen this with new students and people who are new to making photo books, that this is the case as well. In about 12 to 20 hours during one of the busiest times of the year, they can put together a photo book using this process. It's fully documented in my in 100 pages workshop. But what I'm going to share in this free training are really the 4 key strategies that you can take away with just watching this training and start to implement and use for your photo book. And then, of course, if you want more details, you can always sign up for the workshop, which really outlines step-by-step everything that you would need to do. So here's the thing. I wanted a photo book at the end of the year. So around November, beginning of December, I wanted to work on a photo book in about 12 to 20 hours, spending 12 to 20 hours working on the photo selection and designing the photo book in order to have it to share with my family during in my case, during the Christmas holidays. So when we have friends and family in town, that's my goal, is that every year I have a photo book that I can share with them so they can kind of take part in the year that we had just experienced. If you're doing this right after the holidays in January, it's still understanding that it's a busy time and you may not want to spend hours upon hours and complicated process upon complicated process to make a photo book. You want something streamlined, and that's what this training is set up to do. So here are the 4 strategies that are going to help you make a photo book in less time. And I want you, before we get started with the tips, to just imagine being able to spend a couple of hours over the next few weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, working on a photo book that you can have in your hand by the end of the year or in just a couple of weeks. And how great it's going to feel that you now have that book that is sitting on your coffee table, sitting on your shelves, and you can do this year after year and start to build up that collection that is documenting your family's life. It's kind of telling your family story in one beautiful location of a photo book. All right, so let's get started. The first step is that I want you to start with a clear focus. And if you are short on time, you have to understand that you can't cover everything in one photo book. So instead, I want you to limit your focus, find anything that you can do to limit, narrow, and focus in on what is the most important thing that you want to cover. So instead of thinking of a comprehensive annual photo book that covers every single event, everything that you did as a family, getting your everyday life in, plus the vacations in great detail, instead of starting with that overwhelming task, I want you to make a best of annual photo book. So you may not cover every event, every trip, every museum you visited, or whatever family activities you guys participate in the year. You're not going to cover every single one of them. You're going to select the best, your favorites and your favorite photos, and start to pull them into this very curated photo book of your family. One of the strategies that I use within 100 Pages photo book is obviously, in the title, is to limit the pages. So not only are you making a best of photo book, but you're going to restrict yourself to how many pages that you're going to cover. And by doing this, it's going to automatically limit the photos that you can select, which may sound overwhelming or somewhat stressful for you at the moment. But trust me when I say that this actually becomes your saving grace, and you'll find out why in the step 3, my strategy 3. It kind of gives you an out for how you need to approach the selecting of the photos. And it also starts to narrow the scope of your project. So you don't have to see it as hundreds and hundreds of pages that you're filling. It's 100, that's it. Other options, if you didn't like that particular idea, is you can make a seasons photo book. So even if you keep to the limiting pages, you can imagine, okay, you have around 20 to 24 pages per season, spring, summer, fall, winter, and you're covering your year that way. And that helps you perhaps narrow in of, okay, what were the best of those seasons, and just cover that. You could also do a vacation photo book. This is just a great way to narrow not only the pages in your, by result, the photos, but it's also limiting your time frame. Sometimes that can be really helpful too, to kind of rein yourself in. And then you can always just go to somewhat of how you treat a portfolio, is what were your 100 best photos of the year? And you leave it at that. You're only selecting 100 photos, and those are the best photos you took all year long. And that really does become a best of book. So I want you to write this one word down in your notes, focus, and just remind yourself to streamline, focus the scope of your project. And if you have an idea already of how you want to focus your photo book, you can write that down as well. All right, step 2 is to specify your action plan. So one of the best ways that you can start to implement on the focus that you just set up in strategy 1 is to have a very specific action plan. I want you to use verbs. I want you to list small actions out, so it's not just large looming photo book on your to-do list. And I want you to also write out the small actions that build up your tasks. So you're finding a way to break down the tasks that have a sequential relationship to them. So I want to break down this process into discrete tasks just to give you a sense of how to do this. I think you could break it down even further, but just for timeliness, I'm going to break it down into 4 tasks. So we're going to start with organize your photos. Notice it has the verb there and it's very quick and easy. Okay, I've got to organize my photos. The next step is to cull your photos. This is where you're rating, deleting, flagging, giving a color, however you like to cull your photos, that's what you're taking care of in task 2. Then in task 3, you're selecting from your favorites what are the photos that you want to include for this focused photo book. And then finally, you're going to design your layouts. So that's a way to imagine photo book into those 4 tasks. And as long as you kind of keep to that and you can see how they build one upon the other, it does start to give you a step-by-step process that you can follow when life gets in the way. And maybe you were planning on working on your photo book on Saturday, but you missed it because of life events, sick kids, whatever it may be. You know what task you're on and you can stick to it. So even if you find a way to break it up a little further, the best part is to have that written down so it kind of gives you a roadmap. So for this strategy, I want you to write down specify and know that this is specifying the tasks that it's going to take for you to actually make your photo book, and not to make it generic. I want it to be specific. All right, step 3 is to select your photos without regret. And you may know where we're going with this one, but it is true. Most of what happens when we get caught up in selecting photos is the feeling of regret that we have. And so we hem and haw over photos. And really what it ultimately comes down to is learning that we just have to select the photos and not worry about it, right? So in the previous strategy, I gave you kind of a plan, a specific action plan. But what I know from doing this and working with others is that the reality is they don't happen in kind of the same time frame. Like it doesn't take you as long to organize your photos as it does to select your photos, right? Selecting your photos actually does take the longest, the biggest amount of time. And if you know this going into it, you can prepare kind of your time, how you're mapping out this making a photo book process to give you that leeway when you get to this specific step, right? You can know that you may need a larger block of uninterrupted time when you get to this task and start to plan ahead for that. And just realize that selecting photos is hard. It is really, really hard. Believe me, I get it. It is so tempting to just want to include this one and that one and that one and that one and that one because all 8 of these photos of this event is great. And it was hard for me to narrow my 50 down to 8. So I get it. But when we're trying to narrow our focus, we have to be a little more ruthless. We have to select truly what is our favorite. Of a particular event, I would recommend selecting no more than 4 if you can. Perhaps vacations are a little different. But when we're trying to not include everything, we have to keep that focus front and center, select our photos, and move on. And just know that whatever you're selecting at this moment is perfect. I've regretted photos that I selected in 2012, and right now, it doesn't matter to me. When I look at my 2012 photo book from 7 years ago, if you can believe that, the photos that I selected were perfect. So just keep that in mind. So this is just showing the example of how there can be so many different poses and examples of selecting a photo, but what really matters is just selecting that one. Here's the key takeaway is that if you don't select your photos because it's too hard, or you're afraid that you're going to select the wrong photo, or you just want to select more than you can, what you often wind up with is where you are today without a photo book. You don't have any printed photos. So I want you to select the one out of the 20 that you may have, out of the 50 that you may have, and know that that photo is going to be perfect. Okay. Again, I know this is a tough mindset. I'm dwelling on this because I hear you. I get it. I know that this is a big roadblock, but it really is getting over this mindset. It matters more to select, to be ruthlessly select and print your photos than it does to select the absolute perfect photo. Every photo that you select will end up being the perfect photo because it's printed. But trust me, it will be the perfect photo. So the words to write down for this strategy is to select and move on. Trust yourself that you're going to select the one that is perfect for this project. And the fact that you can actually get it done is going to mean way more than overwhelming yourself with trying to select more of those photos. So hopefully that helps to motivate you on this strategy. And then the fourth step is to streamline the software program. And with this one, what I really want you to focus on is how to make the software program work for you. And the way that you can do that is by selecting a few of the favorite layouts, and you rely upon those. You don't try to overcomplicate the program. You don't try to create too many of your own. That you should be streamlining the software programs into just a few select layouts that you like. And this is why for my N100 pages photo book, I recommend using Artifact Uprising to make the photo book. It is true that those photo books are a little more expensive than others. However, I choose that because their software program, I feel, is best suited in terms of the ratio and the clean layouts that they provide. It saves me way more time than I've found using any other software program. And so that's why I recommend Artifact Uprising for this particular photo book. If you are going to do a more comprehensive photo book, or something where you're actually in charge of the design process a little more, which there is a time and place for that, I would not recommend Artifact Uprising. But in this case, if you're making a photo book in less time and with less stress, this is the company that I do recommend. So here's an example of, in Artifact Uprising, an unusual layout, but it's one of their custom layouts. So the spacing and location of a single photo on a page, you can see the right and left page has a slightly different layout. It allows for some creativity, but at the same time, it's still somewhat done for me because it's just one photo on a page. And I start to get used to what 6 to maybe 10, if I'm stretching it, layout examples I like to use. And I rely upon those 6 to 10 layouts, and that's it. So for this strategy, I want you to write down streamline. So streamline your software program. Only have those favorite, easy, go-to layouts that you can rely upon to make this faster photo book. All right, so to recap those 4 strategies, what you're going to do is pull all of them together to make a photo book that is focused, it's purposeful, and it's streamlined. And you're going to accomplish this when you start with a focus. You're going to narrow your intention down. You're going to specify your action plan into small tasks that build on one another and that start with a verb, very key. Then you're going to select photos without regret, knowing that whatever you're selecting today is actually the perfect photo. You don't have to spend hours trying to decide what's going to be the perfect. You're just going to select and move on without regret, and trust that it will be the perfect photo, and it's perfect because it's printed. And then you are also going to streamline the software program, selecting the 4 to I'll give you six to 10 layouts that are going to be the workhorses to place your photos onto the pages and actually lay out your pages with a little more ease than maybe you have experienced in the past. So before this training, you might have felt that making a photo book was too overwhelming, but I hope that after you've heard me walk through these 4 steps, and even kind of give you permission to kind of use the software program pre-made layouts a little bit more than perhaps you thought you should, or the selecting the photos, kind of narrowing your focus. Hopefully that gives you the confidence that you can start and finish your photo book this year. And just again, as a reminder, this is why it matters, is because when you print your photos, you are creating this document that's going to be a part of your family legacy. It's going to be something that is easily referenced, easy to share, something you can pull out at any moment and flip through with your kids. And it's really creating that record. You're taking photos of your family for a reason. And when you can put all of those favorite photos into a photo book, that's when it really comes to life. And it actually gets it kind of out of your head. I mean, we say off your hard drive, but it's really out of your head, and it makes it more of photos for your family when you can create a photo book. And you are here today and watching this training and having a desire to make a photo book because you realize that printing your photos matters. This is something that you want to matter. You want to be important for your entire family, right? You want to share your photos. And making a photo book is the way to do it. So now is your time. I promise it will pay off for you. Your future self will thank you if you implement these 4 strategies. Find a way to make this photo book, hopefully in less time than you thought was even possible, and that you can make the photo book without stress during one of a more stressful time of the year. And I promise it is possible. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a guidance with a step-by-step system, I did want to go over just some information and glimpses into my in 100 pages workshop. So the whole goal of this is to build upon the 4 strategies that I've just laid out for you so that you can design a photo book that you absolutely love and love to share with your kids, your family, even friends who may be in town to visit, that you get to share a little part of your life with them via a photo book. So in 100 pages, what you're going to get with this workshop is a 105-page PDF that walks you through step by step what I do to create my in 100 pages photo book. That again covers all of the 4 strategies that we mentioned today. I actually create 10 focused challenges that walk you through the process. So every step of the way, you feel like you have a challenge that you get to meet. And I also provide a time frame to help you block out those hours. So where I'd mentioned before of 12 to 16 to 20 hours, you can make a photo book. I share a 30-minute video that walks through my entire process of selecting the photos and then also working within the software program. I give you an example of one of my in 100 pages photo books start to finish. So you see every single page, you can see how it flows. I annotate it. So I give kind of instructions or just thoughts on why I selected certain layouts for certain photos or how I paired certain photos together, a little bit more of the intention behind the layouts that I created. I'll have a Q&A video to answer your questions. And then I also provide a pop-up Facebook group, usually through about the end of January or so, to answer any questions that come up. But it's also a great place for accountability, for asking questions. A lot of people in the past have, this photo or that photo, what should I do? Or perhaps here are 4 photos, which one would you select? We also get a lot of which photo would be great for my cover? I'm thinking of this or that. So it's great just to have a group where people are working on this together. And at the by the end of this workshop, you will know how to cull your favorite photos, how to have a specific strategy for selecting the photos, understanding in a more detailed way how to use the software, primarily because you get to see me work through the program itself and the layouts that I use. I give a lot of screen grabs of the layouts in the In 100 Pages workshop. And finally, you will actually create a photo book. That's the most important thing, is that all of these step-by-step instructions lead you through this entire process to create a photo book. So if you are interested, you can join. There should be an enroll button just below this video. And there is $25 off if you order in the next 5 days, if you sign up for the workshop in the next 5 days. So you can make sure to take advantage of this $25 off coupon. And as a special bonus, if you finish your photo book within 4 weeks of the time that you purchase, I will actually refund you back $10 that you can use toward printing your photo book. I mean, actually, you can use it toward anything, but that's the goal, is that you finish your photo book within 4 weeks, you get $10 worth printing it. So with the deal and this $10, you're getting this workshop for $40. And that adds that extra motivation for you to actually get through your photo book. Because at the end of the day, that is what is the most important thing for me, is that you're using this lesson, you're using this free training and the workshop to actually finish your photo book, not just get started and then put it to the side, but I want you to have that extra motivation. So here's just an example of the checkout page. You can use PayPal or a credit card to make the purchase. And then when you sign up, you will immediately be able to log into the members area where I have all of the workshop material available right at the get-go. It doesn't happen over weeks. You get all of the information right up front. That way you can work at your own pace. And then this is just an example of the private Facebook group that you will have access to if you prefer to work in Facebook and ask questions. You can do that here. So if you have some questions, here are a couple of questions that I've received in the past of not knowing where to start. So here's an example of a page where I actually break it down. I kind of break down the challenges that I outline in the workshop itself. And one of the participants, Sarah, said, "You have no idea how much this helps. I'm absolutely a visual learner, and literally breaking it down like this not only makes things simpler, it seriously lowers my anxiety level. LOL, huge thanks, my friend." So that was adorable. But sometimes it is helpful just to have that roadmap of, okay, I'm starting here, here's where I need to go. And then it somehow just alleviates the stress that you feel to actually make that, to actually accomplish it. So sometimes it seems a lot harder than it actually is. When you see how to reach that end goal, it becomes a whole lot easier. I also hear from a lot of people that they just have way too many photos that they're starting with. And so this is where having the challenges and walking through those step-by-steps really helps. So Jackie said that the defined time frame with the targeted goals, so that's these challenges and tips, helped with the daunting photo selection process. And again, I like to set it up so that it is like challenges. You get to meet step-by-step. And so it feels like you are accomplishing things little by little. I don't want you to go from 15,000 photos to 300 overnight. I'm walking you through a process of how to actually get there. A lot of the focus in the videos, or what I use, are Lightroom, is Lightroom. So if you don't have Lightroom yet, you may be wondering if this is still going to be right for you. I do show how to use iPhoto as well as Bridge in my culling process. And Allison said that learning how to use Bridge to cull her photos changed her life. She just watched this video on how to create the smart collections in Bridge and narrowed her photos down from 1,600 to 79, just like that. So I have 3 videos that will hopefully help you show you how I use smart collections to easily cull photos to meet the challenges that I set up, right? The big one here is this is the busiest time of the year for me. Can I really make a photo book now? And Erin in the Facebook group said that the group plus the easy steps in the PDF helped the most to finish her photo book. She only spent small chunks of time because she could easily follow the steps that were outlined in the workshop. And you can see an example of a finished photo book that someone shared in our Facebook group, I believe, two years ago. So always great to see. And yes, I'm a big believer in having the step-by-steps. It allows you to work on your photo book in those small chunks when you have time, because you always know where you are in the process. It just really does help. And if you're not really sure you can do this, going back to Allison, she said, I had no idea that it could be that easy. And sorry, I have plural under ideas. That's wrong. I had no idea that it could be that easy. It sounds dramatic, but this might be the light bulb I need to actually get a book printed. I'm always so overwhelmed with the sheer number of photos that I give up. I can't tell you how amazing and inspiring all of your photo book making is for me. And this in 100 Pages workshop is just brilliant, with lots of thank yous in there, because it does mean a lot when you have an actual process that you can follow and have a printed photo book in your hand at the end of the day. If you have a specific question, please feel free to email me. You can also send me a DM on Instagram if you like, if that's your preference. It does not matter to me. I would love to hear from you. Any questions that you have, or if you had a light bulb go off for you during these trainings, or you want to dive deeper into one of the 4 strategies that I listed in this workshop, I would love to hear from you. So please reach out. I love to chat about photo books as anytime that I can. So do not hesitate to reach out. And then finally, Emily said, I received my book. I love it. I really thought I would not love it as much because I used not so hot photos in my eyes, but she ended up loving it so much. And then I love this part. She said, I thought about taking pics of opening the box, but I was just too excited. So that's great. And the reason why I put this one in here, going back to that third strategy of selecting photos, is because sometimes, especially as you're learning photography, or if you have older photos, you worry about the quality. And I'm here to go back to saying the photos that you end up selecting are the perfect photos. You don't have to worry about it being like, artistically perfect, right? It's really just what you actually do end up printing is perfect in and of itself, primarily because it is printed and now so accessible, but it takes you back to that time, right? It takes you immediately there where you were, what you were doing, and the content in the photos themselves are what's perfect and what is worth printing. And so I thought that was perfectly encapsulated with this quote, because even if you have photos that are not so hot, what ultimately matters is that your photos are printed. All right. So I hope this was helpful for you. I would love to see you join us in 100 Pages workshop if you think that would be helpful for you to have that step-by-step guide. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to send me any feedback, any ahas, any questions, or anything you want to dive deeper into. I am here and would love to hear from you. Thank you again for signing up for the 4 tips to make a faster photo book. If you do start and finish a photo book, please send me a photo. I would love to see your finished photo book. I know your family would greatly appreciate it too. Oh, and your future self will appreciate it. So covering all those boxes, hopefully this has helped. All right. Thank you again. Bye.